Well, you probably have heard everything that needs to be heard about what's going on, really. And then the question a number of people are asking is, why now? What is going on with the fight against corruption, which is one of the three main cardinal platforms upon which the federal government is running the nation? But then one of the issues is how this whole accusations and the rest of them came to be. But then the first thing then would be, how open is the EFCC to taking issues from people? The EFCC, well, the removed EFCC chairman somewhere earlier this month had said, look, if you know anything about us, what can help us to improve on our activities, maybe you should listen to him yourself. All right, well, I'll bring you that one shortly. But then to discuss these issues, of course, the presidency has been making statements about it. The counsel to Magu himself have also been speaking to discuss this and several other issues. Let me begin with Omodara Samson, who is former publicity secretary of the NBA in Ikeja. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
For having me.
First of all, what do you make of all of this going on about the anti-corruption fight?
Well, I think one important thing that every government has failed to look into is building an institution, not building an institution around a particular person. That has always been the problem we have, particularly with the EFCC. I remember the first chairman of the commission was also treated this way. There was this hype about his personality, followed by Madam Wasiri before we have this Magu. But I think the important thing is for institutions to be built not around a particular individuals.
But you know, this thing that you just raised now, it's cause for concern. Every chairman of the EFCC since the beginning has had to leave rather unceremoniously.
In a very controversial manner.
Yeah. Is that a problem of, is this something that should worry us, or you think we have not just found the right person? But before we go to that one, how do we build an institution without an individual?
That has always been our problem generally in this country. Not only in the EFCC, other government agencies, parastatals, we need to look at how we have, if for example, in the advanced crimes, we have the FBI. No name has been mentioned. What we hear is FBI. What we should be hearing should be EFCC, not
yes.
Magu.
But then even the FBI that you cited,
yes.
Some would say, well, at the beginning it wasn't like that, because once you mention FBI, the name J. Edgar Hoover comes to mind, first of all. So very, very strong individual that built that institution.
Very well.
Shouldn't we have such a thing as well, where one individual is able to build an institution strong enough to be able to sustain itself?
We should be able to have such situations. And if you look at it since 2003 when EFCC came into being, that's about 16 or 17 years ago. By now we should be able to have an institution, not built around a particular individual.
What do you think is the problem? What do you think is the problem with that?
I think we need to look inward at the presidency. We look inward at the act that created the EFCC.
Well, what's the problem with the act?
No, we need to look at how who heads the agency is appointed. We need to look at that. Then we need to look at other heads, sectional heads of the commission, so that what we need to do is to build an institution, not around a particular person, so that if Magu leaves today, we won't have problem with the EFCC.
How do we build an institution? I ask that because Ibrahim Magu is a founding operational person at the EFCC. And he has been at such headship level, so to speak, the leadership at the lower levels of the EFCC from the very beginning of the EFCC. One would say that they didn't need to bring anybody else from outside the EFCC. That would suggest to some people that that's some measure of strength of the institution, wouldn't you say? Because if they had brought someone from outside of the institution, it would mean that, okay, maybe they're just trying to roughshod over the institution itself and use whoever is appointed to run some errands.
I do not think so. I think having brought Magu in, being part of the officers that initially started the EFCC, was a plus to EFCC. And I think we should have other functional officials within the EFCC who should automatically take over from EFCC seamlessly without making this noise. Once a question has been raised about his integrity, and I look at it, even when he was sent, his name was sent to National Assembly for confirmation, issues were raised by the Senate. But the presidency, within his knowledge, waived those issues, and he was retained as in acting capacity. The president knew why that decision was taken.
Do you think that decision was right or was wrong? Now,
to my mind, my personal opinion, it was wrong, because by our constitutional democracy, all government agencies and appointees must pass through National Assembly for screening, and particularly the DSS should be able to screen whoever has been sent to National Assembly for confirmation. And the report of DSS then, according to National Assembly, the reports were damning on Magu. But the presidency, in its wisdom, went ahead and retained him in acting capacity. And now that the same presidency has now found out that he should be suspended because of the weightiness of the allegation against him, then so be it.
When you say that the decision to retain him in acting capacity was wrong, was it illegal?
It wasn't. It wasn't. The federal government has the power to hire and fire. And if I intend to employ somebody in my company, and I find out that maybe my wife does not like the face of the man, and I find out that the man can work for me, it's my personal decision. I should be able to go ahead and take such decisions in my personal capacity. And that was exactly what the presidency did.
All right. Well, we have also joining us in this conversation, Monday Ubani, who is a former second vice president of the NBA. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Ubani. Mr. Sampson here has said that, it would seem like the presidency, in the process of trying to confirm Mr. Magu as the EFCC chairman at the time, had varying positions on whether or not the man qualified. The report of the DSS, which of course Mr. Magu himself explained, and the presidency, both of them seemed to be at variance before the National Assembly at the time. Do you think that was a problem in itself, or it was just something that served certain interests?
Well, Ayo, thank you for having me. Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians. The position of the law remains that position is that Section 2, Subsection 3 of the EFCC Act makes a provision that whoever wants to be the chairman of that particular agency needs the confirmation of the Senate. And so I think 2 or 3 times the president presented Magu for confirmation. And those times, the Senate rejected the confirmation, saying that he failed the integrity test. I listened to my learned brother, my friend, Omalara, the former PRO of MBA Ikeja branch, saying that the president did not do anything wrong by keeping him in an acting capacity for 5 years. And that is not the correct position, with due respect. If the Senate is given that authority and power to confirm, and then you are unable to have him confirmed by the Senate, the next thing you have to do is to replace that individual with another person, because the act itself that created EFCC made it very mandatory that he must get the confirmation of the Senate before he can become the chairman of the EFCC. There was no room for acting capacity. The acting capacity of the EFCC chairperson could only be possible before you send his name or her name of that individual to Senate for confirmation. Now, when that particular confirmation failed and failed woefully, there was no reason for that individual to be retained, and he has been there for 5 solid years. And that again calls to question some of the actions or all the actions he has taken within the time he has been.
Mr. Obani, just one moment, Mr. Obani. Are you saying that from what you're saying, it would seem like the president acted in error by retaining Mr. Magu in acting capacity? Is there something specifically that says the man cannot be in acting capacity for as long as, the president wants, or that is a lacuna in the law that needs to be looked at?
It is both. If you look at the act that created the office of the chairmanship of EFCC, there is no room for acting capacity, even though people want to have a recourse to Interpretation Act that if you have power to appoint, you also have power to put somebody in an acting capacity. Now, the acting capacity thing is, if somebody has been there before the expiration of that substantive position, you as a president who is up to, knowing fully well what you need to do, need to send somebody's name to the Senate for confirmation if you have somebody you want to use to replace that individual, or ask that person to be there in the acting capacity, pending the time the Senate will confirm or reject that individual's confirmation. In fact, in America, what they do is that if somebody is in an acting capacity and they want to send the name of that individual in an acting capacity, to the Senate for confirmation, they will remove that individual and bring somebody else, in an acting capacity, pending the time the Senate will confirm or reject. The moment the Senate rejects or confirms, the person now goes to act and in a substantive position if it's confirmed. But if it's rejected, then the person loses that position. But here, what happened in Magu's case is that you sent him for confirmation and the Senate rejected his name, and you now kept him in acting for 5 solid years. Even if somebody has to act in an acting capacity, not up to 5 solid years or even 2 years or even up to a year, because there must be confirmation as required by law. The moment you are keeping that individual in an act for over 5 years, or for 5 years or 4 years, is clearly wrong. It's a great error that was committed with regards to Magu's matter.
Okay, so do you agree with him? He says, it is. You said it's not against the law. He says it is.
Well, like you said, it's subject to argument. It's subject to interpretation of. If we refer, like you mentioned, if we have to look at the interpretation of the actions taken by the presidency, the president that has power to hire also has the power to fire. And like I said, the president knew why that decision was taken. In his wisdom, there must be a particular reason why the president acted that way.
Well, while the reason might be substantive,
yes,
this is a matter of law now.
Yes.
He has said...
He has conveyed a valid position.
Mr. Ubani has said that the president or presidency acted against the law. Do you agree with him?
I do agree with him. But the presidency knew why that decision was taken.
But the vice president, I remember, himself, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a lawyer, said that there was nothing in the law that mandates that the EFCC chairman that says that the EFCC chairman cannot be in office in acting capacity.
If you look at argument put forward by my Nane friend, my Nane senior, Mandi Ubani, it will be proper that the moment somebody else's name is sent to the National Assembly and that name is rejected, normally another person should be sent, another name should be sent to the National Assembly. But I wouldn't know why the presidency went ahead to retain Magu in acting capacity for this number of years before this present situation we find ourselves now.
Let me go back to something that you began to talk about the other time, the fact that every chairman of the EFCC has had to leave office unceremoniously. Yeah. Is that something that should worry us, or we've simply not found the right person?
We should be worried. We should be worried. And that's why we have to look inward as a nation. We have to look inward as a nation.
Why should we be worried?
We should be worried. Why will every chairman of EFCC will leave that office controversially? The same thing happened to the first chairman. Madam Waziri also left not in a very good manner. Look at what is happening to Magu now. We should look at situations in it, and let's not deceive ourselves. These gentlemen that one way or the other has been the head of this anti-corruption agency might be doing their work. Because for presidency to have retained Magu for 5 years, there must be a particular reason. And I believe, subject to any other thing, that reason will be altruistic for the general interest of the country. But some forces too will also fight back to ensure that whoever heads that agency will be disgraced out of office.
Don't you think
that's corruption fighting back?
Good. Well, don't you think some of the allegations against him have some value? Because, for instance, 2 of them, let me just mention, the panel, the presidential panel, says that this man is unable to account for 332 seized houses, all over the place, and the fact that 39 million or 39 billion naira there was a gap between what was declared and what was deposited in the coffers. Isn't that some discrepancy that should give us concern?
That's a very grave allegation against Magu, and the panel should look into it. If it's found culpable, because nobody is above the law. If it's found culpable, the appropriate sanction should be meted.
Okay. Mr. Obani, what's your take on that? Every chairman of the EFCC, from Nuhu Ribadu to Waziri to Lamode, and now Ibrahim Magu, they have had to leave office unceremoniously. Is it something that should give us concern?
Yes. Yeah, we should be very concerned about it, and I think the problem is fundamental and systemic, and we need to deal with the issue of EFCC in a holistic manner. I think this particular incident of Magu has given Federal Republic of Nigeria an opportunity to look at the fight against corruption and the agency itself and do a total review. And one of the reviews that some of us are suggesting with the EFCC Act is that the person that should be appointed there should not necessarily be a police officer. There are other security agencies, with intelligent men and women that should be appointed, or even beyond issue of looking at the security agency. There are so many intelligent men and women in this country outside the security force that can be appointed as chairman of EFCC. It doesn't require that you must have a security background, but the point is that you must be well educated, learned, brushed up well, thoroughly, to handle the issue of corruption. After all, the one that is heading the one of Kenya is not a security, is a professor. And the man is doing so well with the fight against corruption in Kenya. So we need to look at the issue of appointment, the recruitment process, that it doesn't have to be only security agent that should be recruited as a chairperson. Then the second issue is the issue of recovery of property or stolen items. It should not be managed by that agency itself, because most of the people that have actually run that agency ended up having problems with management of the recovered loot. And so why must you now leave such an agency to be the one to manage the loot they recover? Look at the issue of discrepancies in terms of properties allegedly recovered, or the money, or the cash. I mean, why every day Magu was always, reading out all the figures of amount of money has recovered in the billions. And now when they now check the books shows a lot of discrepancy between what he was announcing to the members of the public and what was actually with the Ministry of Finance or Central Bank. So it means that there has always been a problem with the issue of management of the recovered loot. It should not be the same agency. We should now create a different agency that should also manage it. Can you imagine that I heard that EFCC's account has not been audited for the last five years? There is no general audit of the account of EFCC. Who does that? So how can you have an agency that is not properly audited? And of course, the agency itself is under Ministry of Justice, and the man that is there does not account to any person, does not account to the ministry, that's supervisory ministry, and for 5 solid years. So these are issues we need to deal with. So we have to tinker with the EFCC Act. We have to tinker with administrative powers of the EFCC chairperson. We also have to tinker with the independence of that body, that it mustn't be appointed, the chairman mustn't be appointed by the president. Another arm of government should do the appointment and ensure the independence of that body. But the body must also be monitored by other arms of government to avoid abuse, which actually the present agency fell into. There was a clear case of violation of people's rights, abuse, and mismanagement of the alleged resources now that is an issue before the parliament.
Well, you said just now that the EFCC needs to be a little more open. Perhaps that is why the EFCC chairman earlier this month also made this comment.
We are at the level of a moving train. Yes. A moving train. We don't have apology to any looter. We just hit them. I'm telling you, we hit them. And I want you to monitor what we are doing. Yes. So that it's not a one-way situation. You have the right to check the excesses that you record here. Yes. Find a way to tell me that something is going wrong. I will take correction. If you don't do that, you are not. You are already part of the fight against corruption. So you have a duty, responsibility to look at the right thing we are doing and also the wrong thing we are doing. If we are doing wrong, tell us. Because if you don't tell us, you are also responsible. Yes, you are now part and parcel of the fight against corruption. Please.
Well, Mr. Sampson, what do you make of that? Do you think he was just paying lip service or he actually meant it?
Well, I'm not a clairvoyant. I may not know his state of mind where he made that statement. But I will want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he meant well when he said his agents should be looked into. If some wrongs were committed, they should be corrected, and they should also be applauded when good things were done.
Well, I'll take your opinion on what Mr. Ubani said about the law, about tinkering with the law. But let me take your position, Mr. Ubani, on what you just heard of the chairman of the EFCC calling the public to check the EFCC.
It's a good one. It's a good call. Believing that he was matching words, with action, because I have had dealings with EFCC, and what he was just saying openly is not actually what you see in EFCC. They give you the impression that Magu does not take instruction, even from his boss. They give you the impression that Magu does not obey court order. I mean, that is clear. I had a particular case in which he was sued. They refused service of the court process. Even when judgment was given asking Mr. Magu to take an action, either to release or to charge. Magu refused to obey that court order. And when that order was served on the lawyers that work with Magu, and they told us that Magu does not in any way obey court order, that we should forget about court order. That the only thing we can do is that we should call certain persons to actually advise him that he does not obey court order. But he is saying openly now that people should be able to checkmate him and probably correct him. I mean, that is different from the posture that I know that is painted about Magu while he will hear sway as EFCC chairperson. He does not listen, he does not obey court order, he does not in any way believe that somebody is innocent or proven guilty. The moment you are arrested for corrupt practices, you already assume to be guilty in the eyes of Magu. And then all the manner of characters that are being displayed against you as an individual, not being given a fair hearing. And then the next thing that they now telling the whole world, through press of allegations that are alleged against you, damaging your name at the end of the day without giving the opportunity of being here in the court of law. So I think that posture he put was a very good one if he matches action with words. That we should also look at what EFCC is doing. I was in EFCC cell and I discovered that some people were in EFCC cell for up to 2, 3, 4 months without bail, without having access to their lawyer. And I was wondering, what is the issue? Why would it be in that particular place for such number of months without trial? And then I also saw a situation where they were bringing in people every day into the cell. And I was wondering, who is supervisory ministry of this particular agency? Are they coming to see in the cell the number of persons that are supposed to be there and the number of persons that are kept there? And every day we keep on having people, and the place is so hot, so uncomfortable, but they don't mind. A situation where we had up to 50 at a go in the cell, 40-something at a go. That was not too good for an agency of that and all that. So I'm saying, if Magu now says that EFCC should be investigated, I mean, we should also correct them and all that. That is a very good thing. Let us begin to look into the Nigerian police. Let us begin to look into DSS. Let's begin to look at all agencies. We're in democracy. These agencies must operate within the law. They cannot be above the law. You cannot operate democracy and allow agencies to begin to put people in jail for a number of days without trial and all that, without having access to their lawyers and relations. That cannot be allowed to happen. I'm very happy that he made that statement. Let the new person that has taken over now, let EFCC be under the eyes, under the watch of Nigeria, so that we begin to complain of some of these excesses in order not to allow them to do whatever they can do and get away with. That cannot be a country all of us should be proud of.
Well, perhaps that's also pointing to one other allegation that's been making the rounds, which is the activities of the EFCC. I'm talking about EFCC as an institution now, not just, of the chairman, because as Mr. Sampson said earlier, if we continue to focus on an individual, we are not strengthening that institution. But there are other issues on this same Magu saga. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. We're still exploring the issues around the chairman of the EFCC that's been removed and already replaced, and that's talking about Mr. Ibrahim Magu. Well, Mr. Omodara Sampson is still here. Mr. Magu was quoted recently as saying through his counsel that he's not been allowed to defend himself, that he's not allowed to participate in proceedings involving other witnesses. Do you think he's within his rights, or he's overreaching, since this is not a trial, it's just an inquiry?
Whether a judicial or quasi-judicial inquiry or panel, every suspect, because as far as I'm concerned, these are allegations that need to be proved before probably is convicted or is sanctioned. Is entitled to have his lawyers, to have his input by way of participation, representation at all stages of the proceeding. It is an entitlement, constitutional entitlement. It is right. It is right.
But it's an inquiry. It's not a trial.
Whether it is an inquiry, he has the right to be heard, to be given what I call fair hearing. And fair hearing entails that when an issue is raised, he has a stake, or he is allowed to say something about it. What do you know about this? In response to such allegation.
But
he must also, such proceedings must also be done in his presence or his representative.
But you know that the presidency has since said that he is being allowed to have a fair hearing. You know, maybe the problem now is who is saying what is correct, because the act that set up, that empowered the president to set up this panel says that they reserve the rights to make it whether public or private. So is that the problem here?
Even if it's in camera, that is in private, he is also entitled. If Nigerians are not allowed to see, that is what is meant by private or in camera. But he, as the suspect or the person accused, has that fundamental right to participate, either personally or through a counsel of his choice.
Okay.
That is his right.
Mr. Obani, what's your take?
My learned friend is very correct. Whether administrative panel or judicial proceeding, the defendant or the accused person has the right to not only have a legal representation, but to have that lawyer cross-examine any witness they are bringing to put up any allegation against him. So he deserves all the legal safeguards, including, as I said earlier, cross-examining that individual who is giving evidence against him. And so they must ensure that he enjoys fair hearing. It's a constitutional right, and that right cannot be taken away by any panel or by any judicial process. So it's important that he has his day. But it's also to be noted that we're only hearing from him. The people from the panel, I don't know whether they have the spokesperson also to either debunk or corroborate what he has been saying concerning the denial. The government, he said, has been very deficient in giving us information about what is happening to Magu, except what Shehu Garuba put up last weekend concerning the travel of Magu. We were kept totally in dark of what is actually going on, whether he has been suspended or whether somebody else has replaced and all that. You know, what we are getting is from the social media, which is not clearly correct. We should be interested in what comes from the government side concerning this particular process. It's somebody that is their chief anti-corruption agent that is actually being tried. And so members of the public will be interested in knowing what is actually going on. Some of the information we're having on social media, most of them, 90%, may not be accurate. So it's important government comes up to explain that this man is giving fair hearing, and that fair hearing is something that is entitled to under our constitution. Very, very important and very key.
Okay, the instrument that set up this panel, this Salami panel, is the Tribunals of Inquiry Act of 1966, and it has quite a number of things, including the fact that the terms of reference ought to be spelled out. And that's one of the issues that Mr. Magu has raised through his counsel, that he doesn't even know what the terms of reference are. And some of the issues raised against him, some of the petitions against him, he doesn't have access to them. Is that a problem?
It's a problem. As the lawyer rightly pointed out, if somebody is accused of any crime, what the law allows is that that person must be given an opportunity or to know what the crime is all about. It's important so that in order to prepare for his defense. If you're accusing me, you're bringing me before any panel and you don't know what my offenses are or whatever I'm alleged to have committed, how do I even prepare in order to give public clarification and answer to whatever allegations you have leveled against me? So it's important that we do it and do it properly. If you want to, investigate somebody who is in charge of the anti-corruption fight for almost 5 years, and you have been set up to do all that, I think that the proper thing is let him know the allegations and not what he reads from the paper. That these are the allegations against you, unless they're saying that every day new allegations are coming in and all that. But even at that, let him be given that opportunity of responding to those allegations they have made against him, because he has a right of fair hearing. You don't just probably, play, the kind of role some of the security agencies play in this country, where they arrest you and they don't give you an opportunity. When you want to talk, they even, shut you down. And then the next thing is that they start using unorthodox method in order to extract what they call confessional statement, which is different from what we see in other civilized crime, when before they come for you, they have done their investigation, done and dusted, before they now begin to present to you all those concrete facts that shows linkages of you with the ingredients of the offense. So it's very difficult for you. Like Hush Puppy now that is being tried, in America, before they came for him, they have done all their work. So whatever the intelligent lawyer is going to do in America is maybe to get him on plea bargain, but not that it's going to exonerate him completely, because their job has been well done. But here, the security agencies will arrest you and then begin to look for evidence. And I don't think that should be the particular thing that should be done with regards to Magu. I'm sure they would have gotten their information and do it right and give him an opportunity also to respond to those grave allegations that have been leveled against him.
Well, just one more last word from you. There are issues, part of the issues that were raised last week is that the fundamental rights of Mr. Magu might be in the breach right now. Do you think that is something that should give concern, or it's still something we can manage?
Like my colleague said, it is very fundamental that he is allowed to have free and unfettered access to his lawyers.
Okay.
Allegations that have been leveled against him, he should also have access to read those petitions and respond appropriately to those petitions, and it is ensured that his lawyers are allowed to defend him within his constitutional right. Okay.
Well, gentlemen, I have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Omadara Samson is former Publicity Secretary of the NBA Ikeja branch, as well as Monday Ubani, former second Vice President of the NBA. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment to take on another issue. Stay with us.